Hello, this is R Rats with Team 4545 League, analyzing the game between Nidison 2 and Ray and Grant. This was played in team event number 53 in the 5th round. And let's have a look. Have a wee bit of lag here. And it's the French, one of the most complex openings on Earth. At least for me. I don't know about you. Alright. Okay. We're in the mainline winnower. And staying there. I really don't know a lot about this. I know the basic principles. By saying I don't know a lot about this, I don't know a lot of the variations. I guess this is the poison pawn variation, or could be. One of the basic things that happens here, just for those that are learning the French, the line of communication for white in his queen side, between his queen side and his king side, is C1 here, because often this black pawn goes to C4, right? So white will conduct operations on the king side, and black will conduct some operations on the queen side, and who knows. Very, very complex issue that the grandmasters have overplayed, and I think that we lesser folks are going the wrong path by emulating them and playing theoretical lines that very difficult for us to win, because this position pretty much this game pretty much stays even the whole way. And I'm of the belief that if you play something a little different and get your opponent out of book, now it's your brain versus his brain, and if you're confident in your ability, your brain will be better and you'll beat him. That's my approach. Okay. Got me to over 2,200, so you can decide if that's a good approach or bad approach. Maybe it stopped me from going higher, I don't know. Anyway, not sure where this exits book. But in compensation for the bishop that he's given up, white is permanently left with a couple of isolated pawns. And now black's getting some good plays, trying to get a knight into f5. That's thematic. And white liquidates it, which is often also thematic. And you would think that maybe white has gained something here, but really, honestly, he hasn't. Black has resources. You know, we're going into opposite colored bishops, although I've explained before that the attacking side is a piece ahead in an opposite colored bishop position if you're attacking. Both sides have not developed their queen bishop or their queen rook. That ring its ugly head again. How long is this going to stay? But even though black has now accepted double pawns, his bishop suddenly has a square that's just a pillar of strength, e6, and it's nothing more than a tall pawn there. But look at white's bishop. What's it doing? You know, likewise, I'm sure. Ideally, either side would like to go into a knight versus bishop ending, because the opponent's pawns are on the color of its bishop. So that's one thing to play for here. You want to give up your bishop for the other guy's knight if you can do it, because your pawns will not be attacked by the enemy bishop. Okay, so let's move on. And once again, the game's pretty even still. There's really not a heck of a lot happening outside of theory. And I guess some of the plans in theory are to not to activate the bishop and get it to d6. That's certainly a better square for it, but let's see how black reacts to that. And white doesn't play it. But you can't fault knight d4 in a way, because it's putting the knight on a better square. But it unprotects c3. But then again, knight a5, that knight's awful strong on c4. It looks like black's going to have the stronger knight. So it could get, like I say, the game is basically even. There's really not a lot going on here. It's a matter of each side trying to implement something, and there it comes into c4. And here I think what black should have done is just play g6. And a lot of you say, well, wow, look at that horrible bishop. Well, I already said, look at white's horrible bishop. They each have a bad bishop. And let's just assume, for example, that white says, oh good, a bishop, I'm going to take it. You know, the mindset of the person who always trades his bishop for a knight, because he was trained to believe that a bishop is better than a knight. Well, show me which pawn the white bishop's going to attack. I see one. It's on A7. Okay. Show me where the bishop's going to get into play. Well, we'd love to have it on F6, but how are you going to get there? This knight is permanently anchored on C4. White's not getting rid of that guy, period. That's there for the duration. So in this position, Black can play this comfortably for a win. White has his two weaknesses. There they are, C3 and C2, and Black will just continue to operate on the queen side. So let's leave the knight off and say that's horrible to take it. What else does White do? Well, as I said earlier, you want to get into a knight versus bishop ending. So White wants to get rid of that knight. Well, unfortunately, this knight on C4 is covering that key square, D6. So we got to hope he takes it. So the only logical move here is to play bishop E3. Now, what White's trying to do is play bishop F2 and H4 and F6, and then queen H3 and queen H6, and then mate. Well, that's a lot of moves. Black will have time to deal with that. Okay, but the hope here would be that that takes and queen takes, and now White has the better knight. Okay, like I said, you want a knight versus bishop ending, but Black is not without resources here, even though he has that ugly bishop. He's still got those weaknesses to attack on C3 and E2. Now, how's White going to handle that? Well, it's going to start tying his pieces down. White's defending it, and he can't just give it up. He doesn't have enough play elsewhere on the board. I suppose you could try rook here, but it might be a little risky. It does give time for if the pawn goes to B6 to swing the rook up here, but it's still Black has the activity here, and I can't finesse this thing down to the GM level and show you 10 different variations with 10 different sub-variations with each, because this would take all day. But you get the basic idea. I think rook FB1 is a good move here, and it gives White a little glimmer of hope. He's got some play. He'll happily sack this pawn to get this pawn, but Black has resources here as well. So what would Black do? Well, you can put the pawn on B6. Then just got to. I wouldn't worry too much about an A5. It's just going to give you an outside pass pawn at the end of it. And after rook B3, what's Black's plan? Well, as I said, this is our problem piece. We've got to activate it. Okay, it'll just come back to D7. It'll be pressuring pawns, and who knows? Maybe Black can remaneuver his queen to E8 and start putting pressure here. Then occupy C4 with a rook, and White's not getting rid of that rook. Okay, so I think Black's a little better here. But anyway, let's go on. So G6 I think was a better move, but we're not going to criticize this necessarily. Okay, except for this reply. Now, as I said, you don't want to trade your knight for a bishop, which this does, but there's a difference. It gets rid of a pawn, and even though Black can win it back eventually, it's good for this is a good exchange for White. So this gave White a little breathing room. White definitely had the worst game. Now, for the moment, White is a pawn ahead. Black has to get it back, and if I'm White here, I'm very happy, because now some new possibilities have opened up. Even though White still hasn't developed his rook and bishop, that could change here real soon. H7 is a target. We're not going to give it a mate, but we have moves that could lead to threats that will cause Black to weaken his position a little bit, not to mention the fact that the queen can now move, and then the pawn can push from F4 to F5, suddenly activating that bishop, which was hopelessly entombed until F5 fell. Okay, so I've got to be happy with White here, but that's a lot of moves to do something, and Black has resources, and he continues to play some good moves here. Revert, please. That's the revert. Oh, I'm in the main line. Okay. Check. Put the king in the corner, and this is just as good as any time to do it, because even though the knight's better, this just activates the black pieces against the weak white pawns on the king side or the queen side. So this was the right time to do it. Since we're down a pawn, we've given up a pawn for this. And this is interesting. Black is still a pawn down, but he's tying white up a little bit because of his weaknesses. So there it is. Now rook c4 both attacks and defends at the same time, and we'll see how white reacts. And I don't think that's necessarily the best move. f4 wasn't a problem yet, and this is going to just create weaknesses along the 7th rank, which black doesn't exploit soon enough. And this is logical. But even though I'm criticizing some of these moves, the game is still basically even. Black's got compensation for that pawn he's given up because he's got the more active game. And I'm not too sure about that one, but I think what black can just do is just take. And how's white react? Does he trade rooks first, or does he take on e4? There's several ways to do it. Let's just get rid of a rook, okay? Now, here, just for an example, with that rook on c2 and an outside pawn majority, black's got a little better of this. Yeah, white can go threaten a mate. He can get on the 7th rank himself, but it's like I say. I think that black really has, with this rook on c2 and the white pawn structure like this, even if the pawns on the queen side are traded off, this is a draw. White can't make any progress. In order to win a position like this with 4 against 3, and they're tricky, they can be done. You need your pawn structure intact, and then so your king can come up here. This is a hopeless draw. So just to show you real quick, a6. How's white going to prevent b5? Okay. Even if black sacrifices pawn. Now black doesn't have to play b5, but he can. And whoop, there's my library. He there we go. Okay, he doesn't have to sacrifice the pawn, but if black just wants a draw, guess what? This is a draw. Anyway, I won't. You can look this up in the book. That's your job. Look up rook and pawn endings. Smyslov and Levenfish, or maybe it was Smyslov and Averbach. It's part of the Averbach series. I call them all Averbach, even though he didn't write all of them. Anyway, but still, even as it went, now this move should have been okay, but again, what's just wrong with doing this? Just get the rook on the 7th, okay? Just get there. Yeah, it gives up the pawn, but look, you're getting some activity here. What's white going to do? Go threaten mate? Well, we covered that, okay? Well, what's he going to do? Play defense? Show me how this white king is coming in the game. And what's going to happen is the moment he tries to come in and get into the game, gets way over here, pawns are going to start falling. And the farther he advances his king side pawns, the weaker they're going to become. So the game is still a draw at that point. Rook and pawn endings, they're very often drawn when you're a pawn down. Anyway, it's still okay what he did, but he's just going to eventually, I'm not exactly sure where he made his miscue. But earlier I talked about black having a queen side pawn majority. Now look, white has it. So that went away. But so, okay, so anyway, here. And it's hard to find a plan here. I still believe the game is drawn. This pawn is just a thorn. It's hard for white to get rid of that pawn, but he's going to be able to eventually. You'll see. But still, with the possibilities of the rook being active in the heart of the white position, just make it a basic draw. And I think it might have been the point where he needed to go to the 7th rank, but he didn't. Yeah, now the game starts to go bad against him. White's he's creating weaknesses in his position, and White's able to start making just little bitty gains here. Start by getting rid of that, just to open the queen side pawn, just to open up the file. Now, I was talking earlier about a 4-on-3 pawn position that would be a draw, and here it's 4-on-4. But there's some differences. The white king is active, and the rook isn't keeping him back. And I think this is the time when black needed to pretty much try for that, but it's not clear as clear. Anyway, and that's just another weakening move. It might, like I say, it might be too late for rook down here. Let's just try it and show you. Okay, how does white proceed? Well, anyway, if you're not careful, you're going to lose the pawn. Okay, so maybe white has to give it up, but let's consider this check. Okay, what does that do? Where's black going to go? He certainly can't go to f8. That gets him mated. If he comes up to e6, suddenly black has all kinds of threats, or white has all kinds of threats, right? There's a check and take on f7 and potential checkmates. So it's getting very difficult to play. Where else going to go? You know, back to e8. Well, now we start activating the king. But who knows? Maybe this is still a draw. I don't quite remember. But white certainly has a lot of activity here, and it wouldn't surprise me in the least if he wasn't winning. See, now look, now we're going to win that pawn. Whoops. It's a little bit of maneuvering, and this should be winning for white. So by weakening his pawns as he's done the last few moves, that just got black into trouble, and the white king is active enough to win. Now all white needs to do is get his rook to d4, and he's going to do it in a few moves rather nicely. Okay, start with that. Like I say, this has a lot of latent threats to it. If anything, white can check and king f8 and then bring the rook back to d7 so they can get to d4, right? Let's see if that happens. No, it didn't. Well, what was wrong with it? Okay, what does black do here? That's what I want to know. What's black do? If you place king d8, you have rook takes, and we've accomplished our aim, right? And as I was saying, if you play king f8, now you go here and you threaten mate, right? Black has two ways to get out of it. Three ways. Move his king here, or put his rook here, right? And then, well, no matter which one he picks, white plays rook d4 and picks up this pawn and still has these nice advanced pawns supporting his position. So, but let's see how he did it. Is there anything wrong with the way he did it? Here he's planning to get to d6 anyway. So black's only chance would be counterplay, give up the pawn. If white plays king f4, suddenly that pawn becomes a little poisonous, right? We got to be careful. So let's just go ahead and take it. And now we come in here. Well, let's go to d5. I think it's probably a better square. Let's go to d5. And then we take the pawn. And like I say, now we're going to go back to the old method of madness. Check. Now, if you go anywhere but e8, that falls. You're going to lose. So you have to go to e8. And that, I don't know what's happening here. Maybe black can survive this. I don't know. No, he can't. I'm blind. Okay, I showed this earlier. And then rook f8. The only difference between this and an earlier position is the black pawn is a little further advanced, but it's a goner. Okay, so rook d6 wasn't the most precise move, or rook a6, but it wins. And like I say, this is where black should have sacrificed his e-pawn instead of trying to hang on. And now it's too late, because with or without the check, white's going to get the rook d6 interposition in, and that's game, set, and match. And white just dances around his king versus the rook, and finally the rook comes in and defends on e5, and that's the game, because really, although black can play on, it's rather fruitless. He's going to drop the pawn on h5 without any compensation, and it's just a matter of technique. Black could have played on, but it was a respectful choice to decline. This is the kind of game you play on in a blitz game, because anything can happen, and I guess you could play it on in a tournament game, and we've certainly seen that in league games. So hopefully this taught you a little bit about rook endings. definitely the French defense is equalizing opening. It really takes precision for you to beat it. I'm of the opinion it's better to stay away from main line, but that's my choice. The counter argument is if you're well prepared with main line, your opponent may not be. You can really get a good position. So there's two sides to the coin, and maybe, like I say, maybe the person that's well prepared is the one that becomes the better chess player in the long run. You know, my claim is I get you up to my level. After that, it's on you. You know, I can only get you up as good as I got. That's my claim. Is that good enough? But I teach the way I did it. If the only thing I could do is show you how it worked for me, and that's just the way it is with me. If you want different grandmaster's opinion, he'll give you some better advice. Be prepared to spend more time, because anything with chess, it all depends on one key thing. How much time do you have? If you have plenty of time, yeah, study the main lines. If you only have an hour or two a day or a few hours a week, then if you're wasting your time studying openings, you're going to stay at your level, period. All right. Thanks, everybody, for their time. This was an entertaining game. I hope you learned something, and I'll be back soon with another video. Take care.